Good evening to one and all present here. At the outset, I would like to thank the scientific committee and girls for giving me this opportunity. My topic today is dry eye disease, diagnosis, and workup. So, for an effective dry eye diagnosis, here are 10 goals. The first one is first, you need to understand what is exactly dry eye disease. According to FIPO's Deuce 2 report, dry eye is a multifactorial disease of the ocular surface characterized by loss of homeostasis, in which there are four types. There is teocal instability, hyperosmolality, ocular surface inflammation, and sensory abnormalities. The second pearl is for effective management, we first need to know the type and then we can name the KBT. So People's used to has given a certain algorithm which if we follow perfectly can lead us to a proper diagnosis of whether the dry eye is aqueous deficient or is it an evaporative part. When you see the algorithm, you further slides. So it all begins with proper history taking. First, we need to ask the patient if his chief complaints and see whether they are related to dry eye or not, like irritation, dryness, burden, redness, etc. We need to ask the severity and duration of symptoms. Any triggering event? Is the vision affected and does it get cleared on healing? Are the symptoms unilateral or bilateral? Are the symptoms, is there a history of contact lens wear? We also need to ask for the history of mouth dryness or enlarged glands, history of any other systemic condition or any systemic medications that the patient is on, history of drug reaction in the past or long-term hospital admission. There are certain medicines which cause dry eye disease like antihistaminics, antidepressants, anti-acne medicines, antihypertensives, anti-glaucoma, steroid, etc. Many medical conditions like CAT, diabetes, vitamin E deficiency, SLE, rheumatoid arthritis, previous ocular surgery, smoking, HIV, Bell's palsy, all could lead to dry eyes. After thorough history taking, we then look for the risk factors. Suppose a patient is working in a very windy and dry climate, and since today we are all moving from non-digity to digity, in such a scenario, it is expected that the patient might have dry eye, especially the evaporative one, which is actually the most common cause of dry eye in today's scenario. After asking the patient's occupation, we need to do a thorough external examination. As the patient works in the clinic, we can observe his gait. While we talk to him, we can look at his fingers and look for any joint deformities as presently are. We can look for the scale if it is thick, shiny or stretched as we find it scleroderma one. We can see the blink rate of the patient and whether the blink is a complete blink or a Martian blink or is there obvious lid deformity present. We can look for the enlargement of thyroid glands as present in Sjogren syndrome. After a thorough external examination, if we suspect that patient might have dry eye, we hand over the questionnaire to the patient. TPOS used to have suggested mainly two questionnaires like OSDR and dry eye questionnaire 5. And this is the OSDR questionnaire with commonly used appeals, which again help us to get closer to the diagnosis of dry eye. Now, from guesswork to direct care, we can use the new advanced diagnostic technology that is available to diagnose dry eye. There are various technologies like IGRA, which gives us various parameters like non-invasive cut, eye blink, liquid layer thickness, tear orifice height, and logography of the upper and lower legs. But why is this logography important? Because in the first case scenario, if the patient is having evaporative dry eye, our hot fermentation and lid compression will be effective to the patient. But in the second case, in which there are no glands or hardly any glands, hot fermentation and lid massage won't be there. Therefore, we need to know the morphology of the glands before advising the fever. So these are various morphological variants that we can find in the case of evaporative dry eye. Like the first one, distorted glands, droopy eyes, gland rapax, or thin glands or short glands. All the various morphologies can be there in case of evaporative. These are the Neurographies of our patients in which we can see the dilated tortuous gland in the first zodiac gland dropox. In the second one, we can see short glands. In the third one, we can see that short glands are there. In the fourth one, we can see these are put or distorted glands or tortuous glands. All indicate the presence of evaporative dry. Oculus keratoderm was another one such machine which helps us with almost the same parameters as that of Hebron. LipiDrew actually cuts us in diagnosis of evaporative dry eye, giving three parameters like lipid layer thickness, meibography, and the being dynamics. And Ocular Surface Analyzer is again one such diagnostic device which gives the same kind of parameters. Even though the diagnosis is evolved to a certain extent, we have to look at the slit lamp and a thorough slit lamp examination of the lids of eyelashes, lid margin, conjunctiva, cornea is equally important. We need to look at the lens because if PSC is aggressive, it could indicate Gravitans tuberculosis. After inspection, we now touch the patient on slit lamp and we see the expressibility of the meibomial glands and the quality of the meibum and grade it accordingly so as to come closer to our diagnosis of evaporative dry eye if it's present. The eighth rule is don't miss the sati. We have to stay. Even though we have advanced imaging and we get non-invasive part, nowadays, but staining is equally important. We get to know fluorescence T-part with type of stain. And there is a Japanese group which have stated T4, which describes the pattern of the terpene break. And this pattern again gives us a clue to diagnosis whether it is evaporative dry, aqueous deficient, or decreased metadigit lot. Again, staining with fluorescence and resonant brie is equally important. Fluorescence is used for formula and conjunctiva and resonant brie is used for staining the conjunctiva. There are different grading systems which are available which we need to document in our credits. One such grading system is Sika grading. Other tests that could be done according to T-course used to are osmolarity, Sherman's test, tear viscous height, NMP line kicks, and cone-poken microscopy, which are not mandatory. But if we have this facility available with us, it will certainly help us in diagnosis. Like tear osmolarity, if it's more than 0.08, it indicates hyperosmolar dry eye. Sherman's test we routinely perform in our clinic, Sherwood's 1 and Sherwood's 2. Less than 10 indicate atmos deficient dry eye. Tear meniscus height, we can have a report that invasive by staying with fluorescence and non-invasive with the help of diagnostic imaging, but non-invasive is recommended. NMP level 9 levels again, if it's more, it indicates inflammatory color. And this is the most advanced diagnostic, that is cone-poken microscopy, which is used for research at present and helps us to know the nerve density of the cornea along with dendritic cells and activated keratinocytes, which again indicate inflammatory type of dry eye. The last one is dry eye witness is too dry. We cannot just pass the eye and come to a conclusion whether the patient is having aqueous deficient or evaporated. But it is equally important to find the cause of aqueous deficient dry eye. So we need to take the help of physicians and rheumatologists for this purpose. Evaporative dry eye is usually not associated with systemic disease, but aqueous deficient dry eye is further classified into Sjogren's and non-Sjogren's. And it is the secondary Sjogren's which is usually associated with connective tissue disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, and scleroderma, which needs to be diagnosed for effective management of dry eye. And non-Sjogren's causes of dry eye include causes of cicatricing conjunctivitis like ocular cicatricial pemphigoid, Stevens-Johnson syndrome, and drug AD cicatricing conjunctivitis. So when we refer a patient to a rheumatologist, they will do the blood test according to the symptoms and signs they find. If the proper systemic treatment is given for the systemic disease, the dry eye management will be more effective. So this is the sequence of testing. First, the non-invasive test in which we will see the data history. We will give the questionnaire to the patient and we will just have the inspection. And after this non-invasive test comes the invasive test in which we actually touch the patient, we'll see the expression of the glass, build to osmolarity, we'll stain the patient Look for T-word and steamy, and finally do the haematography on the shoulders. So at a glance, these are the three types of dry eye, that is aqueous, deficient, and evaporative. In aqueous deficient, T-word, Schwann and Bjornliske's height will be reduced, while gland expression, lipid thickness, and brocapic will be normal. As an evaporated dry, Sherman's and Tierviscous height will be more likely to be normal, but gland expression, lipid thickness, and lipopopy will be altered. Thank you, Paula, for such an insightful talk. If you have any questions from the audience.
Golden gland accessibility.
Shall I answer? Please take it. Please take a seat.
Call to
You spray.
yes, sir, this is most confusing. When you press is in the quality and how many glands are expressing. Out of the 5 times at the center, upper level yote. So this is expressibility, that in how many glands are expressive, and this is the quality of the liquid express. Is it clear? Calvito, mirror, look distance. You can hear we will shift from diagnostics to therapeutics, and at this time,
Pushar secretary of Powder. I would like to ask the panel how formal is the whole like this law practice? EP and do you all have at least a diagnostic machines or anything, or do you values and duties discipline of not everybody has a setup of pride in it on the
Counts. Do you have any specific diagnostics and so for as Ibomedian means we always look at the margins in there is a growth, the land opening and knowledge and all those views are present, and you always take this weekly and podcast of those blanks. So they make a call off if that is getting into up to the like apart from that, we always staying the patient fluorescent in about Tibet, a look at a Tibet, and we actually take a curriculum video of Tibet patients, whether it is harmful, and in certain patients who are quite symptomatic. So I want an objective method of measuring whether patient is improving or not. We always ask them to fill up OSD S40, and then we do it again when they come for the follow up to look at the improvement also objectively rather than just ask the patient up to T. That is what I do.
Painters, you can always see the blocked expression coming out with Skype on the back. Yes, but because if you're staying it to dry, but usually it is due to meibomic like dysfunction. You can clearly see the blocked meibomic glands on the lip.
that it is a very easily. But otherwise, the Sherma's test or whatever, everybody has an ear. I need to put up the patients in front of the ear. Then you will understand whether hot fermentation and lip massage must or no, whether these lights are working or these lights are disturbed. You only do a calcium surgery. Once you've done the calcium surgery, then look at this rubber lens into the on the ear, and you realize whether you're cut the lens or you're cutting between the lens. So calcium to it looked like a simple surgery, but quite a few times we damage the bone glass and they are not aware of what you're cutting. So what is